You ever wonder why some places, at certain times, just seem to explode with brilliant ideas? Well, today we're going to unpack Eric Weiner's incredible book, The Geography of Genius, to get at that very question. Where does creativity really hide?
You know the classic image we have of genius, right? It's that lone visionary, that brilliant mind scribbling away in a dusty attic, totally isolated from the world. We think of it as this magical spark that just happens inside someone's head. But is that really how it works?
Or what if genius isn't just something you're born with, but something that's made? What if it's actually ignited by the people, the culture, the very atmosphere of a specific place at a specific moment in time?
Well, that's exactly what author Eric Weiner wanted to find out. He traveled all over the world, and his big conclusion is a real game changer. He says it's not so much about who you are, it's about where you are. So let's follow his journey and see if we can uncover the secret ingredients that make these hotspots of genius tick.
Okay, so the first secret ingredient is all about connection. It turns out those brilliant, world-changing ideas, they almost never happen in a vacuum. They're sparked when people get together and collide.
So our first stop has to be ancient Athens. And what made it so special wasn't just the amazing architecture, it was the entire vibe. The whole culture was built on public debate in places like the Agora. The Greeks literally walked and talked their ideas into existence, blurring the lines between work and play. This created this incredible mix of competition and collaboration that just supercharged innovation.
And what's so cool is that this isn't a one-time thing. This pattern shows up again and again throughout history. I mean, look at this. Fast forward centuries to Enlightenment Edinburgh, and you see the same exact thing happening. The public square of Athens was basically reborn in the buzzing coffee houses of Scotland. Places like the Oyster Club became the new centers for intellectual sparring. It's just proof that real, face-to-face human connection is a timeless recipe for genius.
But look, it's not all just about friendly chats. Sometimes creativity needs a little more friction. It needs a kind of pressure cooker. And that pressure often comes from a potent mix of three things: chaos, competition, and cash. Let's head over to Renaissance Florence. A big part of its story is the florin, which was basically the world's first international currency. Now, money didn't directly buy genius, of course, but what it did was act like fertilizer. It gave wealthy patrons like the Medicis the freedom to fund gigantic, ambitious, and really risky artistic projects.
And it wasn't just about the cash. Florence was a cauldron of intense rivalry. I mean, the legendary competition between Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, they were constantly trying to one-up each other, and that creative friction pushed them to do some of the greatest work in human history. It was incredibly productive.
So it's pretty clear that a little bit of pressure and rivalry can go a long way. But it goes even deeper than that. As Eric Weiner puts it, without chaos, there is no creativity. And that idea is the perfect bridge to our next destination, a place that absolutely thrived on disorder.
Welcome to Calcutta, a city Weiner calls a hub of coincidence and randomness. The amazing Bengal Renaissance didn't come out of some neat, tidy workshop. It grew out of unpredictability. It was fueled by this amazing tradition called Ada, which is basically just long, unstructured, aimless conversations that could go anywhere. And in that beautiful, creative mess, ideas were free to collide and create something entirely new. Okay, this next pattern is one of my absolute favorites, the power of the outsider. Time and time again, we see that the really groundbreaking ideas, the ones that shift the whole paradigm, often come from people living on the margins.
Think about Vienna around the year 1900. It was a true melting pot, attracting people from all over. And its golden age was powered by these immigrants who brought in fresh ideas that challenged everything. A perfect example is Sigmund Freud. He wasn't part of Vienna's old establishment, and because he was an outsider, he wasn't tied to tradition. He was free to ask uncomfortable questions and develop his revolutionary theories.
And hey, this isn't just some old historical footnote. This same idea is what powers modern innovation hubs like Silicon Valley. Sociologists call it the power of weak ties. You know, it's not always your best friends who have the breakthrough insight you need. It's your acquaintances, the people you know from totally different circles. They act like bridges, carrying new ideas between worlds and sparking those game-changing collaborations. All right, we've been all over the map, from ancient Athens to Calcutta to Silicon Valley, and we've been gathering all these clues. So now it's time to put it all together. Let's reveal the secret recipe for a place of genius that Weiner uncovered.
So what is the secret sauce? Weiner boils it all down to what he calls the 3 Ds. First up, disorder. You need a little bit of chaos, some tension,
something to shake things up. Second, you need diversity. A true melting pot of cultures, outsiders, and different ways of thinking is essential. And finally, number 3 is discernment. This is so crucial. A place can't just be chaotic, it has to be smart enough to recognize a good idea when it sees one and nurture it.
And this brings us to a really important point where many of us get it backwards. We tend to think that things like technology, or just having a lot of talented people, or a culture of tolerance are what cause creativity. But Weiner's argument is nope, that's not it. Those things aren't the cause, they're the product. They are the fruit that grows from a place that already has the right mix of disorder, diversity, and discernment.
So all of this brings the question back to us, doesn't it? Back to you. When you look at this recipe, disorder, diversity, and discernment, what ingredients for genius can you start to cultivate in your own world, in your community, on your team, or maybe even just in your own life?